Hi and welcome to this week's Fried AI with me, Billy McLaughlin, where I cut through the fuss and get to the facts on the big bad world of AI and what it means for us as accountants, bookkeepers and finance professionals. Coming to you this week from Shanghai, so I obviously had to get the backdrop in today's video. This week we have seen Battle of the Health Bots. So we saw OpenAI announce their health model bot, and shortly after that, just a few days later, Anthropic, who are the parent company for Claude, did something very similar. You might be thinking, Bill, this is not relevant for our industry, but I really wanted to open with this for the main reason that this is coming out to an industry that is highly regulated and highly sensitive. A little bit like finance. So we've even seen Google have stopped their AI summaries on certain medical questions, and it could definitely be a direction of travel for our industry. Paul Ludder actually did an interview that I've seen recently, and he talks about some of the complications of this really, really well. I'll see if I can find it and pop it in the links. I will not do it justice. He is much more articulate than I am, and he raises some really great points in that. Amazon have also launched a wearable AI. They must have been listening to us last week. So theirs is called Bee. If you do see that, have a look, check it out. As I said, we talked about wearable AI last week, but it's going to be more and more prevalent, definitely, in society. And also, X has limited the use of Grok's image generation due to misuse. So there's some very negative headlines also circulating at the moment. Now, Slack have released an update to their Slack bot. You may remember I mentioned these quite a few months ago, and actually it's really interesting. I think they've just kind of scrapped and built it again from the ground up to create more of an agent. So rather than it just responding to one-off prompts, they've now created it in a way that it can understand the context and become a bit more of an agent with access to the information that you've got in your Slack account. It uses things like messages, files, and understand the context of what you're talking about within your conversations to then provide better responses and better insights. It's trying to position itself a little bit more as a work hub as opposed to kind of just a chat interface. And one of the best use cases I've seen people discussing around this is when you've asked a colleague a question and you've kind of forgot what they said and you don't want to ask them again. Well, within that context and understanding that Slack has, you can quite easily have that conversation with Slack and ask what your colleagues have said. So this is going to maybe drive conversations online rather than people doing things face to face, but it is an interesting take. I would also say though that Slack was never built to be a practice management platform. So in my opinion, just going and throwing all your files and documents in there to then have this feature, probably not worth it. In a similar sort of thread, please don't be thinking about using Slack just because of this feature. I think there are a lot of other products on the market that offer some great things, but if you are already using Slack, it's a great thing to know because they're also segmenting out between different teams and things like that, so you get a really great benefit if you're already a user of Slack. Okay, on that note, I also don't usually offer an opinion piece, but I just feel like I need to just say something here. I've seen a lot online this week around snobbery on certain tools and people having opinions and making comments about the different LLMs that people are using and kind of saying, if you're using this, you're no good. If you're using that, that means that you're not as good as me. I completely disagree with this. If you're using any of the LLMs right now, brilliant. Having said that, it is always interesting to see which models rise above the rest. And at the moment, Claude's releases are coming thick and fast. So Claude have just made a huge announcement this week with Coworker. And the idea here is that they're creating this AI agent. I saw the term and it's going to have passive involvement, I think is what it said. So the idea is that it's not a dormant tool until you use it. It's actually going to be there to help you work throughout whatever task you're doing. Now, the idea here is that they're definitely moving on to the agent space and it's going to be capable of managing files. I've seen a really great use case where it cleans up somebody's desktop. It's great at tracking work and staying involved across all of your tasks. So with this in mind, one of the great things I've seen in terms of what you could be doing, or one of the things that I think would be beneficial, not only for you, but for your clients, is if you've got a startup client who's maybe not ready to recruit, but they need a bit more of that hands-on support, why not use Claude for that? So essentially, the time that they would take to recruit, they could build their Coworker and not have that recruitment fee or that wage cost within their P&L. Slight bit of bad news is, will clients expect us to be using this? Are they going to think we've used it even if we haven't? And obviously it does always raise the question of accountability. So if the AI agent makes a mistake, who is responsible for that? This could be a great opportunity for you to change the way your admin teams and your juniors work. And I'm going to be showing some real use cases of this on my webinar on the 28th of January on the AI Practice Academy, where I'm going to be giving you some actual use cases that you could use within your practice, because that's what we're here for. Google next, and they have enhanced their AI capabilities on their AI-driven Gmail. This is within that wider push they've got to embed AI into all of their workspace tools, which I am absolutely in awe of. I think they are 100% going to do this, and I think it's a fantastic idea. This kind of AI advancement within the inbox tool is so good in terms of the fact that it can tell you which messages are important, which ones you should be replying to, which ones you can ignore. Obviously, there is a risk here that it deprioritizes an important message because it is going to learn as you go along. But I think it's a great idea, especially for us in our industry where inboxes are just overflowing. So we've seen this before with kind of automatic replies and ones where it can summarize what you should be saying and what the email thread looks like. But actually, the difference here is that it's trying to reduce the inbox before you then go to that step further of looking at the replies, etc. Please don't try this in January. That is going to be my only caveat. So if you are thinking about this, if you are a Gmail user, I would probably give it a go, but just not rely on it too heavily until you've got comfortable with it, obviously. It is interesting to see though, because also I've heard that Google are going to be behind some of the AI in Siri on Apple. So it just shows that they are really, really ahead of the game and willing to do that collaboration, which we always love to see. 11 Labs next. Now, this isn't necessarily something that is specific to our industry. However, if you did see my talk at DAS at the beginning of 2025, you'll have seen me demonstrate 11 Labs. And this is a voice creation tool. It's fantastic if you are doing avatars, etc. They've just announced that they have hit $330 million in annual recurring revenue. Well done to them. It might be quite easy to think, yes, but where am I going to use this in my practice? Clients don't want an AI activated tool, etc., etc. But actually, the numbers don't lie. And if that is the case, then there is a huge drive in people that are willing to listen to AI as a voice. So the growth is driven by voice generation and narration tools. We're seeing this across media, gaming, and also education and business. So although we don't think our clients would want it, and I would be inclined to agree because it's not a preference of mine, there is also a huge amount of people that are doing AI videos, listening to AI videos and consuming content in that way. So if they're consuming their entertainment and their education in that way, then why would they change it for other parts of their life? So not something to rule out just yet, but it's great to see a growth area in something that could affect. And kind of combining the last two headlines, Google have kind of used Gemini to make Google Classroom into podcasts. So essentially what they're doing is they're taking the education platform and making it audio only. And I can see this being huge. I can see this being huge across our industry in terms of lessons for qualifications. So whatever qualification you're doing, instead of sitting in a classroom and reading and writing, there is this aspect of people that prefer to learn through audio. I am one of those people. So I use at the moment Notebook LM to find articles, turn them into a podcast and listen to it whilst I'm walking. And it could be something that we see definitely being used. So I think in the future we could expect to see CPD and education being turned into audio as well as written and visual education. And OpenAI have put a call out to contractors and they have asked people to upload real life work examples. I think this is a fantastic idea and I can totally see what they are doing here. So they've said to prepare AI to assist with white collar jobs. The idea is that the company's asking people to upload projects from past jobs, leaving it to, are you ready? Leaving OpenAI to strip out anything that is confidential or personal information. Not sure I trust that one, so go careful, folks. But the idea here is that if you've used it for a certain reason, if you tell OpenAI, they'll be able to train the model on that and grow in that area. And again, they are specifically coming for white-collar jobs, so just be aware. Now, this is a great idea. I remember years ago when sort of software started recruiting accountants. Katie Hawking, I remember when you moved over to Xero, and I think there was this aspect of finally we had accountants discussing what accountants needed as opposed to software developers. And I think that's exactly the route that OpenAI are taking here. So it'd be great to see how this pans out. If you are going to do it, you have to get permission before you start sharing information on there. But if you're not, you may still see the benefits of the learnings and the development that they're going to see from this call. And last but not least is Briefcase, who came out the stalls very, very quickly this year with an announcement that they now do VAT, accounts, and tracking codes at line item. So essentially what they do is they take each line individually, they then group any that are the same or can keep them separate depending on your preference. And as always, it learns from those historical transactions, which is where the AI really comes in. That is everything from me this week from wonderful Shanghai. I'll see you next week from a different location. Hope you all have a fantastic weekend, and I'll catch you all soon.